everybody. So I just wanted to do a brief live. I know I'm taking it from the page, but I feel like that's where most of my live should be coming from. So I figured I just wanted to touch on some things that we're not talking about with regarding Corona. Yeah, here we go, the C word. And so the coronavirus has created a lot of tension, anxiety, a lot of different emotions that people are feeling at this time. But there's two things that have popped in my mind this week that we really are not talking about, and I thought that it was quite important that we touch on it. First, quarantine ourselves, self-isolating, basically means staying in our homes, not really going out unless we need to get things like medication or cleaning supplies. This does not mean going into restaurants and sitting down there and doing our work. A lot of people are working from homes, and also children are home, unfortunately. So what I wanted to touch on is the fact that with self-quarantining and self-isolation and just quarantine, what is happening is that people are now stuck at home together. So we may have seen that in the news, people are talking about in China, the divorce rate is going up or that it will go up. Something that we're not talking about specifically in Guyana is that what could happen as a result of people having to self-isolate is that the rate of abuse in intimate partner violence, IPV, will increase. Why is that? Because we have people at home now. We have people who are not probably using the same coping mechanisms they might use. We have perpetrators who traditionally might be at work, whereas now they're not at work. Maybe they're not working at all, much less working from home. You have persons now who might be the breadwinner, whose income has been slashed because maybe they don't need to be working. For example, tourism sector. I just saw someone talking about the airport, the baggage handlers, those kinds of persons. You may not have income. You might have a sense of helplessness, a lot of exaggerated and extreme emotions you might be feeling. And so this can cause friction and tension in the home. And so with that, we might see an increase in intimate partner violence in the home. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about, which is, have we considered what quarantining and social distancing and social isolation mean? So we also have to look at that now the perpetrators are home. So usually the victim may get a break whereby the perpetrator or the breadwinner might be out at work for, say, 8 hours a day. And so there's a break for the persons who have to live with an abusive spouse or partner. So now we don't have that break. We have them in our house, in our space with us, watching everything we do. They're bored. They're helpless. They may feel emasculated by not having work or not having pay as a result of the quarantine. And so, like I said, intensified emotions equals friction, and friction increases arguments and, by extension, physical violence. And so that's something that I don't think anyone's really talking about. Yes, we're talking about divorce, but in Guyana, where we have a high level of abuse, spousal abuse, intimate partner violence, gender-based violence, we're not talking about how being stuck at home with your perpetrator is going to be really, really scary. So not only are we talking about the likelihood of intimate partner violence, but we're also talking about the mental health impacts of having to be home day in, day out with your perpetrator. So even if you lived with a perpetrator, like I said, they might be out at work. They may also be out after work. So you've now got even longer than 8 hours. So if you have a perpetrator in your life or a spouse that copes with alcohol and going at the corner shop and drinking until 8, 9 o'clock at night, well, the bars are shutting down, the rum shops are shutting down, the corner shops. We can't shut them down, hopefully not, because that is also their livelihood. But now we have people like, if in Guyana we get more staunch with the shutting down of the city, like a lockdown like New York, we're going to have people who also just don't know how to cope without hanging out with their buddies after work. And that's another thing we have to consider. And that's why I did the first video on Corona with coping, because I knew that that was going to be the main thing, which is coping with the immediate fear. But now we're moving further into things like social distancing, self-isolation. So we have to consider that now there is a likelihood that people are going to be spending more time and being more susceptible to getting into arguments with their partners who who they're basically stuck at home with. Now, the second thing I want to touch on was, by extension, a home that now has a perpetrator, survivor, victim. Now there's friction, and because schools are closed, children are at home witnessing this. So we're going to see not only an increased levels of violence, but we're going to also see increased anxiety in survivors, and we're also going to see increased anxiety in children, because children now they are also stuck in the house with a perpetrator as well. And they're going to be stuck in a house with arguments and physical violence even more now than ever. So we have to consider those two things that I don't think we've been talking about, and specifically should be considered in Guyana, because we have issues with abuse. And not only just children witnessing violence, but those now having to be home with a perpetrator, or being left with another family member who is also perhaps a perpetrator of some other type of abuse. We're not just talking physical here, but we're talking about sexual, financial, emotional, psychological. And so we have children also being exposed to family members who maybe they only saw in the evenings, that they didn't have to be all day home with. And so now there's no school. I think we underestimate the support that schools as an institution provide for children. Just like work gets a perpetrator out of the house, schools keep children in a space that's not hostile, hopefully. We hope that schools aren't hostile. And so that by going to school, they also get time off from hostility in the home space, home environment. And so now we don't have that institution to take children out of, and they're stuck at home, either, like I said, witnessing violence or being victims themselves of all types of abuse. And like I said, if they're not at home, they're going to be sent to maybe a family member who can watch over them while the parents do go to work. So just because there's no school to put them in from 8 to 3, right? So this is where we have to really start talking about these issues. So what do we do about it? So I want you all to, I always say at the end of my videos, call to action is check in on your people, check in on your friends, check in even on your strong friends. And I think at this point in time, if you know that you have a girlfriend or a guy friend who has a very hostile partner, I think this is a good time to check in on them. If they're able to use their phones, why are they not answering? Sending them an email, sending someone, if your neighbor is friends with your friend, or you have a cousin that's friends with your friend who may be living with a perpetrator or an abusive partner, I would definitely encourage you to check in often, because we just don't know when will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, or something that causes a physical altercation during this time. We also want to be checking in with our children, even if they're staying with grandparents or uncles or aunts or neighbors. We want to ask them how was their day, what did they do. You want to look for changes in their mood. You want to also address if you notice those changes in their moods, whereby something's happening. Children's moods just don't change like that. And children are genuinely concerned at this point in time. They don't understand why they can't go to school. They don't understand why they can't play with their friends. They don't understand why they can't go to the park or to go to KFC and play in the playground. So we really, like I said in the other video relating to, I think, elections, talk to your children about what's happening right now, not in a rough, crazy badar way you might talk to your friends, but understanding that children don't interpret emotions the same way we do, and they feel it just as much as we do. And so I would definitely encourage people to check in with your friends, check in with your kids, check in with your neighbors, see how everyone's doing, talk to them. If it is that something is happening, don't forget that we have Child Protection Agency, we have Child Link. If you're not sure what to do, you can always message persons who are either social workers or are psychologists. You can always message this page and let me know, and I will do the investigation and contact CPA myself. So I just want to throw it out. I don't want to make it long. And I really hope that everyone is doing their part within the community and trying to be supportive and not being panic stricken or depressed or sad or feeling hopeless and helpless, whether it's being caused by coronavirus or whether it's caused by uncertainty during this elections period. So I just wanted to throw that out, and I really hope that people are staying safe, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And I encourage everyone, go back and watch the video on elections and managing your emotions, and go back and watch the video on the coronavirus and how to cope during this time. Okay? So I just wanted to throw out those two areas that we're not talking about, the social issues that are also going to probably occur specifically in Guyana because of the climate that we live in, unfortunately. So I just wanted to throw that out, okay? Comment, questions, let me know, share the video, and I hope you guys have a safe day and a productive week. Take care.